we can begin. So we're going to look over the syllabus, see what's involved in the class, and then maybe we'll have a chance to chat a bit, get to know each other a bit more. So this is a lecture class, really like a lecture and discussion class. So there's no production, even though we're talking about electronic media, which would cover radio and television and things that look like radio and television that now come out at us through the internet. Let's see. We covered, I'm looking at the course description here, which is kind of like meaningless as I look at it. If I could focus, but it's about the history of those industries, radio, television, and the internet. Social media is included in the internet to some extent in this class. It's about the way the industry is organized, like, how do they make money, as far as we can tell. It's about the social implications of that. So, what does it do to us to be immersed in this culture full of technology that constantly changes and changes the way we relate to one another through the technology and changes the way we relate to information with, giving us phones we can carry around and look stuff up on. It's a different mentality in a way, And it's also all to me like a bit of a mystery too. I mean, as much as the model in academia is we know stuff and we tell you stuff, it's moving so fast and I'm so old and kind of behind the times that with a lot of the new technology, you already know more as users about it than I ever will. And then there's other mysteries as to what does it really do to us, to sleep with a phone and wake up, and the minute you wake up to check something out, to be constantly in touch with people through electronic means to the point where you don't even want to see them sometimes, but you're just texting to them. I mean, all of these have really huge implications, and when we look back at what happened when radio came on the scene, we can sort of say, well, society changed a little bit, politics changed a little bit, information, news, it changed. We can't really tell how it affects us psychologically. We have a few ideas. There's some research we'll talk about. So like I said, it's a pretty big mystery, and it's also moving very fast. So no matter what we know about old media, we do start off talking about that just to make me feel safe and secure and knowledgeable. But then we get into stuff that you know more about. And I do my best to share with you what I think and find out what you think. And we go through the textbook, and it's full of information. So there's all of that mixes together. And that's what makes the class. So when you come out, let's look at these student learning outcomes, because that's what we promise you. You'll be able to define terms and methods of operations, laws and procedures and issues related to electronic media. So, the industry has terms for these things. The government has rules about what you can say, what you can't say on TV, how many TV stations somebody can own, and all, we look at some of those policy and regulation issues as well, and laws and such. So you'll know more about those. Number 2, consider the history. So, history is very deep and we don't have a whole lot of time. So we try to just go into some broad, in terms of anecdotes and events, we talk about some big changes, like when do you think was the highest share of television viewership in the history of TV? What program do you think it was? The one that got the most people ever watching. And not the most people watching, the highest share. Okay, you were up first and then you. And so you first.
The moon landing?
The moon landing. It's a good one, but not right. Pardon me?
That was going to be my guess.
That was going to be your guess too.
It could be President Obama's inauguration.
And you know what it was? In terms of share, and now we're going to talk about share, meaning given the number of TV sets that existed in the country at the time. So it's like now, obviously, there's a lot more people watching TV than there were in the 1950s. But you don't like TV? You're more.
I don't like a lot of the news companies these days.
Be interesting to find more out about that. Elvis Presley, Ed Sullivan had, when I talk about share, what I mean is of all the TV sets in the United States, the night that most of them were tuned to the same channel, Elvis Presley going on Ed Sullivan. Okay, even the Super Bowl doesn't beat that. But in this day and age, as you can imagine, the most watched stuff are those in the United States are those gigantic sports events like the Super Bowl and stuff. In many ways, they're keeping broadcast TV alive.
Well, they say that the person who has been seen in person by the most people of all time, this fact was as of a few years ago, may have updated by now, is, oh God, what's his name? The guy from the Rolling Stones.
Mick?
Yes.
Mick Jagger. Oh,
It's
interesting.
seen by the most people of anyone in human history. You'd think it would be the Pope, but
The Pope's changed, but Mick Jagger's been the Pope of rock for 60 years, let's say. I don't know. Okay, interesting tidbits, though, and we're definitely open to tidbits here. 3, appraise the historical significance of milestones. So as I said, we'll talk about some events, milestones in broadcast history. One comes to mind is perhaps the Orson Welles broadcast for the War of the Worlds. Anybody heard about that? Maybe in another class? There's a lot of people nodding. A lot of people nodding. Yeah? You heard about it? You heard of it? Yeah. I mean, on YouTube, the entire broadcast can be found on YouTube if you're ever interested in it. But did you hear about the reaction to it as well as the... Hang on, I'm just talking to this fellow here. I can tell I'll be like jumping, ignoring you in the corner pretty often. But do please raise a hand. I'll always try to get to you. Is it Richard?
No, Ron.
Ron.
That was born
What did you hear about the War of the Worlds broadcast?
Not much. I just heard of it. It's like probably accepted. It's
Yeah.
not really. I don't really call it that far back. That's broadcast.
Yeah. Well, it was broadcast on Halloween. I think it was 1939. I might be wrong. 1936, possibly. I think 39. We could look it up on our phones, right? However, most of the public listening to the broadcast didn't realize it was fiction. So the scenario is, it's very much like a kind of a fake radio documentary where, oh, excuse us, we break into programming with an urgent message for you. Strange lights have been seen in the New Jersey area. And then there's like apparently something crashed and they fake going live to, experts and police looking at this thing that's landed in a field. And then the thing opens up and everyone starts screaming. And it's like alien invasion. And a lot of people, enough people to make the newspapers and more, basically ran out of their houses screaming. There was a huge panic. People thought it was real, and they were jumping in their cars and driving off, and so that's clearly a milestone in the history of broadcasting. And one of the things that it tells us is not only was Orson Welles, a great director of radio and film and stuff, but also that one may generalize as a kind of a hypothesis and say, well, when a new medium comes out, we tend to be more credulous as to the truth of it. When we're not used to being misled by media, as people in the 1930s were not used to being misled by the radio. They thought that, well, if it was on the radio, it was true, right? Because how could it get on the radio if it wasn't? And so they were fooled. And this may continue to happen, yes.
Too many people think that just because you hear it on the news, it's true. Too many people think that these days.
Thank you for raising your hand.
Well, if the mass shooter is named Sam Hyde, it wasn't him, that was trolls on the internet who were playing. CNN has fallen for that twice. After there was a shooting and some trolls from a forum online called up CNN and said the guy who did it is Sam Hyde.
And they went with it.
And they broadcast saying the shooter is called Sam Hyde.
Terrible. Okay. Everyone gets 30 seconds when they talk. 30 seconds and let's say 3 interventions per class. After that, we try to share them out. Does anyone have a rebuttal or more to say on that issue? Yep.
I guess since I don't know anything, it's more than enough helpful that he kind of knows.
Oh, okay. I'm not saying a rebuttal to like me whether I should shut him down or not. No. I'm saying to the idea that CNN, gets misled a lot by trolls on the internet, or
Not just CNN and not just by trolls on the internet.
or your more general point was don't trust what you hear on the news just because it's on the news, basically, which is, I think, a very good point. We should always listen critically. But you don't have any more on that, do you, sir?
Yes, sir. I was just wondering, though, but once you see it with your eyes, you can confirm it, though, right? I mean, as far as CNN goes, if you see a film clip, you can confirm it because you've seen it with your own eyes.
No.
Well, that's a what would we call it? A primary source when you've actually experienced something. But there's lots of opportunities when videotaping stuff to edit them or change, the perspective on them. We're not even talking photoshopping. We're just talking, what angle were you from? Was it
Right.
clear who was pulling the trigger or stuff?
Right, but I'm just saying that, as far as that you can't trust everything you hear on the TV. I agree with that as far as broadcasting goes. But I mean, when you've seen a clip and it supports everything that's been said, I find it hard to deny that. And
Even though the clip might have been manipulated and changed up or stuff like that. Hands up, please. This is not an open conversation. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I always get excited.
The other thing about that kind of first-hand witness idea is how much of what we see on television or what constitutes news or knowledge are we ever there for to experience? Do you know what I mean? It's like most of what we see and know is mediated now, unless we happen to be at the corner and somebody gets run over, God forbid. But then we're kind of more in a position to say something.
I fully agree. There's two sides to every story. You know what I'm saying?
Or more, maybe more than two
Yeah,
sides.
that's right. You know what I mean? But I mean, and perhaps the clip that we see with our own eyes, is not actually, the other side of the story and understand why these things happen.
Yeah, good point. But I do think coming back to like what would I like to stand by as an idea about media consumption and also finding out the truth is really, we all have to be fact checkers in this day and age, more so than ever. And when media was more locked down and controlled by what we call gatekeepers, ABC, CBS, NBC, etc. They might have distorted or told inaccuracies in a broader mass sense. But as you know, in this day and age, where news is coming at you through your Facebook feed or whatever, and it may be from a website that was made by a teenager in some Eastern European country or something, that managed to mislead an enormous number of people. So, in this day and age, it's even more important for all of us to be sort of fact checkers in our own minds. Does that really make sense? And the first thing would be simply look for corroboration. If you hear something that's too good to be true, check it out somewhere else. And if you've only heard it from one source, and it's very important and it seems like earth-shattering and only one, source on the internet or wherever is talking about it, that might, I think, be doubtful. And then look again in an hour and see what's happening, And this is not accounting for bots or whatever might come in and produce more of this. So it's a good point, Keep your eyes and ears open and try to assess things critically. Even what's in the textbook, which to come to, why do I point at you? Just because we were talking about what your comment was, well, I think he's good. It's good that he knows, and can tell us that. And I think that is true. The only other thing, though, is I kind of have to stand by, well, let me put it this way. I wouldn't want you to come to a class and be misinformed. And I'm not saying that you would misinform us or willingly mislead us at all, but it could possibly be so. And so when someone says something that I've never heard of, sometimes I really feel like going and checking it out myself because I learn from you guys all the time. But I wouldn't want us to turn the class into kind of an open forum where, soon we'll have flat earthers facing off against and so on and so forth, right? Because these are all beliefs that have constituencies, communities that truly are attached to them and believe them, right? And we could get into the evolutionary versus the religious view of creation and so on and so forth. These are huge ones, but even just little ones, like such as what was the name of so and so who did this or that the trolls told us X, Y, Z. So, ultimately in our class, the source of information is going to be the textbook, which may also contain errors, but it's sort of being vetted, and what we can kind of dig up and corroborate online. A lot of it becomes common knowledge, and nobody says that that we have to go off and check every little fact. But therefore, when you do raise your hand with a nice tidbit or morsel, I hope you're already thinking in your mind, do I really know this? And how do I know this? And if it's kind of coming to you through major media and such, be doubtful. But so just in the classroom, let's stick to what we know, and when we go afield and we are searching and hypothesizing and guessing, as long as we're clear about that, that's okay too. But we should be aware of all of that, because otherwise we just come to school in order to exchange gossip, which is hopefully not all that it is. So 4, assess current trends in electronic media. We'll definitely do that. 5, analyze the impact of changes in complementary industries like telecommunications on the broadcast electronic media industry. Well, that's interesting. Any news on that front, or anybody caught any news in the last few months about things going on in the broadcasting industry that struck you as important? Yep.
Disney's buyout of 20th Century Fox.
Hugely important. Yeah, that's a very big one. Disney's planning on picking up many of the assets of Fox. Not, however, the Fox cable channel that News Corp will continue to hold on to because they love their, position of power and whispering nice things into Republicans' ears, basically. And so they're hanging on to that bit, but they're eager to sell the catalog, all the back, the productions that are owned by 20th Century Fox, the Fox television studios product, etc. Disney wants to buy all of that. That was a great one. That's huge. Thousands of people will lose their jobs because of that merger, despite what people are, saying in government. It's a job creator. It'll be a plus, but I don't think so. That's big. Others that came up? Yep.
CNN blackmailing some Redditor and the third great meme war beginning from that.
Where's your source on this?
Where's my source on this? Whole bunch of places, including 4chan, Reddit. It did actually happen. I have been researching it from a lot of different places. Many of them escape my mind right now. This was some time ago.
Okay.
But essentially what happened, it's a pretty interesting story. CNN, if you look on their Twitter...
The 30 seconds are running. I'm sure you can do it in 30.
Far enough. They said, we threatened this person and said, we're going to release your information if you make any more memes that portray Donald Trump beating up CNN in certain ways.
I see, okay. They were threatening to dox him?
Yes, pretty much. I've been threatened to dox him. I don't care. Anyone
by CNN?
No, not by CNN.
Oh, okay. Well, let's stick to your story here.
Regardless.
Yeah.
And then the entirety of 4chan and Reddit got incredibly pissed off and released this personal information of everyone working for CNN, or a lot of people working for CNN, within 24 hours.
Okay.
That was the third great meme war.
Got you. All right. I mean, if it's true, I have no idea, but that constitutes a...
If you look up the third great meme war, I'm sure...
I'll leave it up to you, okay? But yeah, because that becomes your responsibility, but I'll put that on my list of things that I want to actually go find out about.
It's also known as #CNN blackmail.
We'll check it out. Yep. Compare the various business functions and general operations of a broadcast media outlet. So in terms of radio or television stations, we talk about the structure of these types of businesses. Less so about web enterprises, but we do make an effort there somehow. 7, evaluate issues regarding the organization, methods of operation, and business practice in contemporary electronic media such as television, cable, satellite, etc. Same type of thing, business information. What goes on in these different massively vertically oriented, or vertically, what would you call it? They all stick together. Disney owns ESPN, etc. They're vertically integrated companies, huge. Disney being the largest now by far. 8, compare and contrast different audience research methodologies, theories of media effects on audience. So we'll talk about the ratings. And we already came up with share today. 9, evaluate emerging technologies and discuss their applications. So we do try to talk a little bit about VR and such eventual emerging technologies, Internet of Things, virtual reality, things that are on the horizon yet. So there you go. So those are your learning objectives. Next up, required textbook, electronic media then, now, and later. So this could be best price we found last semester. Everybody looking was something called Chegg, which rented it at a decent price. You could check that out online. There's also 4 or 5 copies in the library that are on reserve, so you can go read the textbook there as well. We do, I have the publisher's PowerPoints, which are incredibly detailed. So a lot of the information week by week you can kind of grasp from the PowerPoints. So there you go. I think, though, that you will definitely have to get access to the textbook to write the assigned research papers. The textbook has so much information that I certainly couldn't digest it all in one semester. So we go through it kind of picking what's important, but the fact that all that information is there makes it useful for when it's time to write a research paper. Sort of your first stop will be your textbook. And it is in the library, so you can get a hold of it. If you can't, if you don't want to buy it, as I said, you go to the library at those key moments when you actually need to cite the textbook for your research essays, right? So you will need to make contact with a textbook. The research essays that don't have something from the textbook always get reduced points. So it's important to know that you need to be able to use the textbook. Yes.
Yes, sir. So besides looking it up for research, are you able to purchase it? Do they have, I heard you say they had for rent or something, but do they have anything?
They do, yeah. The bookstore should have copies you can buy. You can buy it on Amazon, so it's available. You can rent it from Amazon. You can get it in Kindle, you can get it on paper. But I imagine buying it outright at the bookstore is like $120 or some crazy price like that.
Okay.
So this is why I recommend renting it.
Yes.
And or a Kindle rental could be good. That kind of thing
Thank you.
keeps the price down. Righto. So we have a website. It's here in Canvas. How many people would like me just to go quickly through how to log on to Canvas? Yeah, a couple folks? Okay, great. So Canvas is the learning management software that we use here at City College. By learning management software, what it means is every one of your courses it could potentially put up a website within Canvas, and I use it for all of I make available to you all of the PowerPoints, all of the extra materials that we could read that I think you might find interesting. All of the assignments are in there with their due dates, and you turn in the work preferably through Canvas. In fact, unless you have a problem like, hey, I can't get the computer or I can't get this thing to work, I would like all the assignments to be turned in through Canvas. If that's an issue, then we can talk about how you could turn everything into me on paper if you have to. But this makes it a lot better for me. In addition, you can constantly look at your grade. There's a Gradebook in Canvas, so you can look it up. It's all confidential. So it's a really good way of keeping track. of how you're doing and what we are doing. So for those of you who need to get started with Canvas, if you go to the homepage of City College and then click on My CCSF, you will find a place here which is called Log into Canvas. So when you're, week by week, you'll probably just put a bookmark in or something, but that's the place to log in. Now, if you've never used Canvas before, and I suggest you should go to the link one step lower here. It says claim RAM ID and log into Canvas, a student guide. So this is a little guide that tells you how to use Canvas for the first time. So Canvas is protected by a login with a password, and this is a description about how to go and what they say, they call it claim your RAM ID, which means basically get your username and your password that you can use. And so all of that is explained in this document, which you can get through the City College website, My CCSF. So once you claim your RAM ID, which means you got your username and your password, you enter it in there and you log in, and you can get underway with the website for the class. So I'm just logging in on my side. I see a little bit more, whoops, and of course I gotta say this. I see a little bit more than you do on the teacher side, but this is called the dashboard. So every one of your classes that has published a website through Canvas, you'll see it show up here. Where is ours? Down one, maybe? Here it is, Intro to Electronic Media. So when I click on it, this is what you should see. And so what you find in Canvas, and maybe I'd be happy to talk with people before class or something to give them a few more pointers here. But just looking through this, there's this big button here that says Start Here for a course overview. And so this will lead you to basically week by week, everything that we're doing is here. So for week 1, for instance, we're getting started. We've got a little overview. I'm going to give you an assignment next class. There's a website you could look at if you feel like it. And then week by week, everything that we do is here. I show PowerPoints in class to get you organized on the lectures. So they're all up here. You can, they're here, PowerPoint summary. So these, you could click on them at home and get them up on your computer so you can see what we're talking about and stuff. So every week those PowerPoints are there. Plus there's all kinds of extra stuff that I think might be interesting when, for you eventually. Often I have extra stuff, and if we don't get to it in class, I don't give it to you. So this is what's great about Canvas. And then there are the assignments. For instance, here's the assignment for the research paper, the first one. So you would see this a little differently, but basically, that tells you all about the assignment. And then there's a button you can click up here in order to submit your assignment when all of that is due. So this is Canvas. This is what we use to basically keep all on the same page. The syllabus that you're reading is also up here, and a bunch of other stuff. And the gradebook, so you can look in and see your grades there. I won't click it because right now no grades, but everyone's name is in there and stuff. And so, but when you click on it, you'll just see your grade, and you can keep track of how you're doing. Okay? Questions about Canvas? As I said, if most of the people didn't raise their hand, so I assume most of the people are already using it. But anybody who isn't, anybody who's new to it, I can't do it today after class, but before next class, I'll be here early. And you can always drop in early, and I can lead you through how to use this. And do find out how to use it, because it's really essential. You can't really get away without using it. So It's worth it. Once you learn a little bit how it works, for all of your classes, it'll be useful. Okay. Right. So that's the website for now, and we'll come back to it. So let's hit page 2 with our unique attendance policy, or almost unique, because we stream these lectures, so you don't have to be here if you're watching the lecture while we're streaming it, with a few exceptions, which is what I get to here pretty early on. So this will be live. In fact, it's live streaming now as we do our thing. Hi, hello, Mom. So there are cameras facing you, and there's cameras facing me, and there's microphones that hear you when you ask questions and stuff. And I got a mic up here, and so, yeah. So this is really voluntary. If you prefer to come into class and sit in class, I'm happy to see you, and we always have good discussions. If you want to, or if you have to, consume the class by streaming, that's totally okay. That's absolutely fine, you know. So there are a couple of exceptions to this, but which are a few days that you absolutely have to attend. You have to attend either today or next class, just to say hello and make sure that, you know, there's a real person who registered here legally. I got to see you. But once you come in on that basis, you're in, and you are then free to stream the class if you want. And by the way, if you miss the stream, it's also archived on YouTube. So there's a YouTube channel. It takes them a couple of days to edit, and then they'll post it onto YouTube, so you can see prior lectures that you might have missed a couple of days later as well. The next time you have to be here is on March 15th for the midterm exam. The next time after that is on either April 10th or April 12th. Everyone is doing a presentation, a brief presentation in front of the class, which is sort of like a pretend news show about the media industries. So that assignment is, we get into little groups. Each group is assigned, you know, a media company or corporation, and we say, okay, go out and find us the latest news. And you come back, and with your group, you stand up here and you do like a 30-second news piece. Each of you is sort of like, today Disney announced they'd be buying all the assets of 20th Century Fox. You know, because Rupert Murdoch is Donald Trump's best friend, there will be no kind of regulatory interference as there is in the AT&T Time Warner merger, which is also before the Department of Justice right now, et cetera. So that would be your kind of 30-second pseudo-news presentation. So you'll be either on April 10th or April 12th, depends on when your group is scheduled to go. You'll know that well in advance. So you have to be here for that, because we have to see you. Yeah.
We get to pick our piece of news to present to the class.
You do, yeah. I sort you into groups as to like which, you know, gigantic entity, like Disney, ESPN, etc.
Yeah.
But then you choose the
You
piece.
research within that, and then you just
Yeah,
pick a piece.
like a little internet research. You provide us with a source. Again, we talk about sources, you know, and so on and so forth. And then you have to be here for the final exam, which is, okay.
17.
Thank you. Yes, please write this in, because after I printed the syllabus, I try to get things done in, just to set my mind at ease. Anyhow, the final exam date is, write this in. Whoops. Where am I? I'm going the wrong direction. Thursday, May 17th from 3:30 to 5:30. So, with the exception of those dates, not those dates, but the ones that are up in the syllabus. So, with the exception of these dates, you are free to stream the course and not attend in person if you feel like it. Okay? So, there's a link here as to where you can go watch the stream. So, it appears on a page like this with a bunch of other stuff. Can we watch ourselves? What would happen if we did that? Ooh.
I just did that.
Did you?
Yes.
So there's a delay. You'll see that there's a delay, which makes it kind of hard to be remote and really interact with us. But I do ask that if you are streaming, please sign into, I have to make this visible. I took it offline at the end of last class, but there is chat. Where is chat? Chat. Is this something that I have to enable? Something that I don't see? How strange. I guess it's something that I've taken off the class that I have to put back on. Next class, we'll see. Down here, there should be, one of these things. It should say chat, and you should be able just to like log in. So I check it at the beginning of class just to say hi. It gives me a sense of who's actually streaming, and if you have a question, pop it in there, and we do try to get back question or comment. We do try to dip into the chat, now and then, just to try to let you guys who are streaming ask questions or whatever. It's kind of imperfect. I've asked for budget to have a student mentor, actually moderate the chat. But so far, it's kind of like we get to it when we can. Yeah.
So I read that it says please post at least once in chat during the class for attendance. Does that message need to be constructed towards the class, or can it just be like, I'm here?
It can be just, I'm here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's really like present, that's it. Yeah. Now, if you feel like weighing in with comments or stuff, hopefully we'll pick them up and relay them to the class.
Is this one? Sorry to interrupt.
But it's just sufficient just to say, hey, I'm here. Yeah?
Is this one of those classes that are going to be on channel 27 or 75 as well?
I do think that we have a broadcast date, but I think it comes later. So I don't know. Do you would
I
find
was
that
just looking at it.
preferable
I'm
to?
like, I streamed it live right now, and it says the option for channel 27.
Yeah.
or 75.
Yeah, it is. They did tell me that it would be on EATV. I think what's more useful is to be able to get it on demand through YouTube. So somewhere in here, oh, there we go. So this is from last semester and stuff. But eventually, within a couple of days, they edit them and they put them up. So I think that you can use those to review for exams or see if you missed a lecture or something like that. So this is where it shows up. If you forget about all this, on the home page, there's also a link here, streaming information. So all this information is here as well. So last semester it was on EATV, Wednesdays at 11:30 a.m. I don't know if they usually reschedule every semester, so we'll let you know about that. But anyway, there's the information for streaming. Right? Okay, let's dip back into, where were we? No, we were in syllabus. Okay. Boom. Further down. So now you know that you're free to attend or stream it. If you stream it, please sign into chat so that I know that you're there. Gives me a better sense of like who's still with us and who's not, because that's an issue when we, unfortunately, when you're not here every week, I kind of have to figure out if you're still participating in the class. So it's very important that you come on those days that you're supposed to come, and it's important that you turn in the work that we're supposed to do, promptly, or stay in touch with me in email, just because a certain percentage of the class stuff happens, they will disappear, they will not be participating anymore, and I have to figure it out somehow. So seeing you in chat always helps me know that you are participating. Yeah?
Yes, sir. I don't know how to get to chat.
I actually have to make sure, once you're in Canvas,
Yes.
you should see it appear on the side, and for some reason, I'm not seeing it myself, which is like, what's going on with that? So I have to investigate. But by next class, we should be able to. So let's see. You've signed your release forms, so we can do that. Good. Grading. You guys want to know what kind of work is in this class. So let's get on to that, because here we go. This is sort of okay to look at. So we have, here it is, right? I'll explain to you what it is. The easy stuff that requires almost no explanation are the quizzes and the exams. So we have a quiz, we have a midterm exam, we have a second quiz, and we have a final exam. These are multiple choice exams. The exams have 50 questions on them. The quizzes have 25 questions on them. At the end of lecture every week, on the Thursday lecture, we do a little thing called Kahoot. Has anybody played a Kahoot in another class before? You like them? Anybody else?
I've heard of them.
Well, a Kahoot, yeah, it's you've done them. That's cool. Kahoot is like a kind of in-class quiz where I ask you questions about what we've studied. It's not for credit, and you can log in on your device and enter a code, and then you can answer multiple choice, and all your scores go up on the board. And it can be fun. It can be fun, and it's also a good way for me to, shoot questions at you that you'll eventually see on the midterm or the final too. So we do it after on the Thursday of every week, and sometimes it's like, oh, we talked so much, we didn't get to this point or that point. So maybe there'll be a question on there that you've never heard about before. So it's a good way for me to make sure that we've covered everything that's likely to be on an exam or a quiz that way. So we've got Kahoots every week, which are not for credit. But in terms of the work for credit, we got a quiz, a midterm, and a second quiz, and a final. Multiple choice, there you go. And you have to be present for the midterm and the final. The quizzes you can do at home, okay? So now, what else are we doing? We have a couple of things that we do in class. I already talked to you about the industry news presentation, right? So that's the one where you pick a corporation and come in with a news item and you do your, news announcer thing on it with your group. So there's that one. Before that, if I go back to the beginning, we do one on TV programming, which is about, what kind of shows get programmed when. We do one on advertisements, which is kind of like trying to, suss out like what the intention of the advertisement is. So it's a little bit of kind of interpretation of an advertisement. You guys get to choose which ads you want to think about. And then we have one more of these, which is an online discussion, which we can talk about when we get there. So these are worth 25 points out of 500. And then we get to these big items, which are the term papers. So term paper 1, term paper 2, and a little thing we do first off, which is a media use diary. So I'll talk to you about that media use diary next class, because it comes up, it's due on February 1st. What it is it's a diary about what kind of media you have consumed during a particular period of time, and a few other wrinkles that we'll get into next class. Then there are these 2 term papers, which are 4 pages minimum. They're research papers in the sense that you have to supply facts in support of some idea or premise that you have about the media, and some of those facts have to come from the textbook. There are a selection of topics from which you can choose for each of these. Looking at how those scores break down, there's a total of 500 points, all right? Forget about Chegg here, but let's say 500 points. Out of 500 points, research paper, the term paper number 2 and the term paper number 1, each one is worth 100, right? Don't put negative minus signs. And the media use diary is 50. So the total is 250 points about term papers, right? Out of 500. So half of your grade is based on you writing these essays. I just wanted to draw that to your attention because, for instance, I got a very snarky email a few days ago from a student who said, I thought I was doing great in your class. I only missed 2 of your assignments and then I got a D. Well, I looked at what 2 assignments they were, and they were like this one and this one. So they lost 150 points out of 500. It was like you lost a massive number of points not doing those essays, right? So, look at it this way, that student didn't do 30% of the work. So starting, he never could have gotten more than 70 out of 100, right? A 70%, which is a C. You're just hanging on with a C. So of course he, missed up a little bit on something else. He got a D, and he was really disappointed. But he should have been looking at what stuff is worth. So the point is, you really can't pass the class unless you do those essays. At least you might scrape by skipping one of those essays, but you really got to do both. Okay. So be forewarned just about that, those essays are really high points and they're important. For people who love writing, that's great. For people who hate exams, that's great too, because the exams are not worth as much. So that's good. But if you hate writing, then, we'll have to work together to help you get a good topic, and you'll have to start early so you have a chance to write a draft or two, and you'll do fine. But if you don't write those, you'll do terribly. Okay? Message conveyed. All right. Any questions about the work and how much it's worth? So an A is 450 to 500 points, a B is 400 to 449, and so it's basically 90% and above is an A, 80% and above is a B, 70% and above is a C. Below a C, as you know, at City College, you don't get credit for a D or an F. So anything below 70% or 350 points, you basically don't get credit, which would be a bummer. But people did well last semester, and I do believe in part it's because they can keep up through streaming and stuff. Even if your work schedule or whatever gets in the way, or if transportation turns out to be hell, you can still stay in touch with the class by streaming. You can submit all of your stuff online through Canvas. So it makes it more convenient for you, I hope. Questions about the grade breakdown and stuff? Okay. Accommodations, if you need anything from City College to help you do better in class, if it's a question of mobility, if it's a question of having a quiet place to write exams or stuff, that can be arranged through the DSPS, which is over in the Rosenberg Library, or available. You've got the phone numbers here. You could schedule an appointment with them and say, I would like to get, on record with you, and they send me a letter as to what I have to do to help you out. And they're really great. I teach at San Francisco State as well, and we don't have over there anything as great as the DSPS over here. Okay, so that could be useful to you. There's a warning about plagiarism in here, which basically covers obviously not copying another person's term paper and presenting it as your own, obviously not cheating on a test. So the highest level of integrity is required for all quizzes and exams and assignments. You should do your own work, have your own unique answers to questions. Anyone found cheating or plagiarizing the work of others will receive a 0 on the exam or the assignment. So that's basically the thing. If I find that everything's being copied from Wikipedia, then you get a 0 on that. And that would, of course, everyone who does this is smarter than that. So, and in fact, it's been many semesters where I have not had any instance of plagiarism. So that's really great. But there's the warning about it, just in case. Okay? Our schedule, as you can see, is the last thing on the syllabus. Hopefully the dates are correct. I try very hard to make sure they do line up. As you can see, we basically, every week, we do a chapter from the textbook. So we follow the order of the textbook. As I say, you're going to get the PowerPoints. In fact, they're already available to you. The PowerPoints for each of these. Next week, we'll start in on Chapter 1 PowerPoints. So you'll be able to follow along with that. The assignments, the due dates are in there. On March 6th, we have a all-college flex day where the teachers do their thing, but you don't have classes. And then there's spring break. 327, 329, spring break, woo! I think it's time to call this class to a close here. However, you'll see the PowerPoints look like this. They come from, the publisher. So they are pretty detailed. So PowerPoints probably be good for you guys. Okay, questions about all of this? Otherwise, I see you on Thursday. If I don't see you, I hope that you'll be streaming. And look for the chat function to say hi, at least.